Okay, so I think today we'll actually start like we do with maybe the zoology class, for instance. So you've done that enough. Just go around and left or right? So left of yourself, all right? Left or left, left? Okay. Now front or back? Okay. Give me what's the most basic breakdown of hormones? Okay. You have this side and then this side. No, though you're being too specific. Okay. Really broad, really general. We talk about hormones, you have this or this. I can't hear you. Okay, that's a type of mechanism. Okay, look to your right, maybe your lab partner can help. Steroid and non-steroid. Okay, so then what is significant about steroid hormones? They're soluble? No. Oh, now it's in.
Yep.
Sure it's not out?
No, it's
Out soluble?
no,
Is there such thing as out soluble? Probably not. We just try to make things up from time to time. But yes, why? Yes, they're insoluble, but that doesn't answer what's significant about steroid hormones. Each and every one of those, you got the table out, and that'd be a good place to look, because when we're talking about steroid hormones, you have mineralocorticoids, you have gonadotropins, and then the third one is a glucocorticoid. Okay, so whether you're talking about testosterone, estrogen, but probably progesterone too, and I said aldosterone already. Cortisol, that's the other one I'm looking for. Those all have one thing in common. And what might that be? They're all derived from this parent structure. Okay, ask your lab partner. See, and if a mistake is made, fine. We make a mistake. We move on. That's how we learn. Okay? So move up one. What are those all derived from? Starts with this letter. Well, don't say it like a cholesterol. Say it like a question. Yes, it's cholesterol. That's right. So steroid hormones are derived from the same parent compound known as cholesterol. Okay? So, what is a hormone that can affect glucose metabolism? Not that I would have thought of, but you're not wrong. Okay? That does affect glucose metabolism. That's, like I said, that's getting one of the tougher hormones that causes that. Okay? Because that also affects metabolism of fatty acids, carbohydrates, and proteins. Okay? Yes, you're not wrong. How about another one? We'll say there's your lab partner who came up with a really tough one, so there's a couple easy ones left. Yes, you were right. Glucagon. Okay? So if we know that glucagon affects it, what does it do?
Breaks it.
You sure? Yeah, it'll raise the sugar levels because that's one of the functions of glucagon. Because if there's another hormone that counteracts that, okay, where you have a teeter-tot, I'm trying not to spill my coffee, okay? What is that called when one hormone counteracts another one? Right here. So when, you're not going to find it on there, okay? About yourself. You're not going to find it on paper. Okay? So think about it, because we said glucagon, that will tip the scale. So what's another hormone that tips that scale? If it's not glucagon, it's insulin. And what is it that always wants to bring change in the human body back to a homeostatic level? It's a type of feedback. It's a negative feedback, okay? So if sugar levels is an example of that, which it is, we briefly talked about another negative feedback mechanism. What's one of the hormones that we talked about that does that? Why are you right when you say PTH? What is it? Parathyroid hormone. Where, see, now you got the tough part out. Yeah, you find it not just in your neck, but on what structure in the neck? On the thyroid gland, but they're called parathyroid structures, okay? So if that's where it is, what does it do, though? It's going to raise the calcium levels, okay? So if that's what raises the levels, there has to be something to counteract that to lower concentration of calcium levels. Calcitonin. So what clue did we say you can use it to your advantage to do that? Yeah, since it ends in in or in, it's a way of forcing the calcium back into the bone, where not necessarily where it belongs. It's just a place that the human body can store it. Okay. Now, whether oddly enough, in a separate conversation, that's where osteoblasts and osteoclasts are really important when it comes to that hormone known as calcitonin. Because if you are having that forced into the bone tissue, it's actually osteoblasts. It's something that you're going to learn next semester, that actually are types of cells that will build bone tissue. Okay. Now, throughout the course of this basketball season, making the transformation from the volleyball season, you basketball players, your bodies are going through a transformation, okay? You might think, well, what do you mean a transformation? Well, does the human body move the same in basketball than it does in volleyball? You're shaking your head, no. Why are you right? It was just a guess? Okay, so if you are not stationary, you're moving. That puts stress on your skeletal system, which it should. Is that bad if you put stress on your skeletal system? No, not at all, because it will compensate for that by reshaping itself, okay? And a good example of that, we could say, I don't know if you can really, you can kind of feel back here, you have your, okay, it's not your shoulder blade. That's a common name. Does anyone know what it's actually called? It starts with an S. It is a scapula, okay? You can kind of feel back here, it's actually called the spine of your scapula, okay? Also out here, okay, you have what's called your acromion process. The reason that those bones are shaped the way that they are, and they'll change from time to time, is the stress that is put on them. Okay? That's why bones look the way they do. It's not because of just how they fit together. It's just the different types of stress that you put on them. And that's why basketball is way much different, or way more different than that of volleyball. So is there some soreness going through, you're shaking your, I would think so. Okay, gentlemen? Okay, so that's just because, well, not because, it's not that you're out of shape, but there's a whole biochemical process, see if we remember, from 1 and 2 years ago. Okay? if you're running an oxygen debt, which means obviously you don't have enough oxygen, okay? There is a process that your body still will make energy for itself, not getting into the Krebs cycle for respiration, but it halts in a process called glycolysis. Oh yeah, glycolysis. We remember that, right?
Yeah.
Oh good. So then if...
You're so dumb. I know that.
No, that was good. I wouldn't expect anyone to know, but correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wagner, but what happens in that process is at the end of glycolysis, there's two molecules of pyruvic acid, which can be converted to ATP without oxygen. It's just that in that conversion, it gets changed to lactic acid. And that lactic acid really starts to build up in your muscles, okay? And just like what you think, acid inside your muscles, yeah, it's going to cause soreness. But throughout the course of, what would you think, 2-3 hours, your body will naturally flush that out of your muscle cells by just continually drinking water, and it just, I wouldn't say just wipes it away, but just probably picks it up and mixes with the water, because it's, I would certainly think it's got to be water soluble, lactic acid, and then you just filter it out of your kidneys, and then out the body it goes. Okay. So sometimes I think it's unique to go through some of these aspects that we've talked about, because there's a whole set of questions that we could have asked. Like, what's the master gland? Starts with a P. It sits below the thalamus and hypothalamus. It's in a pit. I'm being mean. Why? You're right, but why am I being mean?
Pronunciation.
I'm sorry. It's no. Don't. It's a compliment, because you're. That means you're thinking. Okay. Okay. The pituitary gland. So then, how many parts of the pituitary gland are utilized in the endocrine system? 1 or 2? 2. There's a front and a back called the adenohypophysis, and then the backside is the neurohypophysis. Okay? So then, just how about we give us one more hormone that we've talked about that hasn't been mentioned today? Okay, thyroid stimulating hormone, that's one, and cortisol. Now, those are good examples because not only do they have separate functions, but they're on two totally different sides of the table. Okay, yeah, because cortisol is steroid based, and then TSH, is that what we said? Yeah, thyroid stimulating hormone. Right. Okay, so we just have a little bit of content to go through, then we'll put you on your way. Okay. But when you put effort into this, okay, whether pronunciations are right or not, that means you are thinking, okay? And when you're thinking, that process will start to put some of that content into your long-term memory. Because if you know it today, you're going to know it tomorrow, and you're also probably going to know it a year, 2 years from now, hopefully 5 years from now, even if you don't use it. Okay. So we talked about this hormone right here. It increases the blood calcium ion levels, and calcitonin, on the other hand, will lower that. Then we move forward. We started talking about this adrenal medulla being part of your adrenal glands. Here's two more hormones, okay, that I believe they're what we call amino-based, okay? Now, for all practical purposes, again, now I'm going to pick on yourself up here because you have seen this before. Other students have not. Okay? So, for instance, what is everything you can tell me about that? It's an amino acid. Okay? The reason we call it an amino acid because on this side of the compound we have an amino group. On this side of the compound, what is that? That's an acid, hence the name amino acid. Okay? Yes. Sometimes they can get to be mean because they're amino acids. Amino acids. Yeah. Sometimes they're not kind, they're mean. Mean acids. Okay?
Is that funny?
Yeah. Oh. Thanks, Jack. We told a funny. That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. All right. So now the difference with these amino acids is what you see on this middle carbon. Because when you look at something like this, okay, now there's a whole carbon chain that's out here, but just with this limited knowledge right here, what type of group is that? It's an amino group, just like what we see up here. So epinephrine and norepinephrine have similar structures like this because they've got an amino group on there, just like some amino acids. All right. Sometimes we think perhaps we should have you draw the structures of these hormones. But some of them are actually pretty complex. So we save that as a biochemistry process that you'll be more familiar with when we get to that next semester. Okay. Okay. So one of the things that we want you to think about in a physiological aspect is why this helps with blood pressure. And we'll get to that here in just a moment. There's one thing I just haven't figured out yet. Whether it's first hour or this hour, why is it every time I look at the clock, we're almost done with class? Why is that? Well, see, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that at all. Okay? Maybe it's because you students work hard. Yeah, that could be a pretty good reason. Yeah, I think so. And perhaps we're choosing to be in here. That's probably a logical reason too. And maybe we see the, I don't want to say validity, but there's a reason why some of you are in here, because we know that we want to have a good background in this. Okay, so anytime we're talking about something like this, look at it says mineral electrolytes. We also know that there's another type of mineral corticoid that we've talked about, but is not a steroid hormone. Aldosterone is derived from cholesterol, hence it is a steroid hormone. What is another mineral corticoid that deals with minerals that is not a steroid hormone? And we have talked about it today. Two of them. Say that again? Nope, not epinephrine.
Non-steroid.
Yes. It's not oxytocin. It's not norepinephrine. Okay? Parathyroid stimulating hormone is a mineral corticoid. What is another mineral corticoid? Because if you named that one, you got the tough one out of the way. Calcitonin. Why are they considered as mineral corticoids? What do they deal with? Which is a what? It's a mineral. That's right. So when we talk about this, okay, what mineral are we talking about when it comes to that of aldosterone? It's not too far from sodium. Why is sodium yes, it's a mineral, but when aldosterone is secreted, it's saying, hey, sodium ions, we want to keep you in the body. Because what is following the sodium? Water, and that is a vital function of aldosterone. Okay, so last thing we want to talk about is this, okay? How would this possibly have an effect on blood pressure, do you think? I wouldn't expect you to know the answer because that is a very tough question. Because now think of it this way, your response isn't wrong. No, I just thought, I was looking at you, so all of a sudden I see something like that. Yes, who's the jitters? Oh, okay. So when we look at this, remember, this is pulling water out of the blood, okay? So if water is diminishing in the blood, is that going to become thicker or thinner? It's going to become thicker, okay? So when that happens, do you think that blood pressure will go up because it's thicker and harder to pump, or lower because it's thicker and harder to pump? It's definitely going to go up. So when you start pulling water out of the blood, it becomes more thick and raises your blood pressure, okay? Which sometimes that has to happen, okay? And unfortunately, what can happen is if someone has internal bleeding, and if your blood pressure goes up because your brain is maybe going through shock, thinking, oh my gosh, we got to get blood to our brain. We got to raise the blood pressure. Okay, you're pushing more blood into your brain because you've raised your blood pressure, but wherever it is you're leaking on the inside, what's happening there as well? You're going to be losing it faster. Exactly. So sometimes this isn't a foolproof system, that our bodies do a pretty good job of looking after themselves, providing we actually do take care of them. Okay, I think I want to give a little bit of time for what's behind here, and then we'll send you on your way. We'll give you time to work on it tomorrow, because we'll wrap up the adrenal gland and then start talking about the pancreas. Okay, if you remember, there were, how many inflammatory bowel syndromes were there? There were 3, okay? And we had you take your own, let's say, notes. It's a skill that we want you to develop. Is that maybe a good word, Mr. Wagner? Or, okay? So if we're really good, what were 2 of those 3 inflammatory bowel diseases? Crohn's is one, colitis is another, and diverticulitis was another. Holy cow. I didn't, no offense, that usually means that you do take offense, but no offense, I didn't think you would come up with 2 of those 3 just like that. Okay? So that's, maybe it's because we're that smart. Yeah, I could believe that, but maybe it's because we wrote it down. anytime you write it down, or even if you keystroke it, okay, this is okay, but I think this is better. Okay, so what's a little different about this is we want you to look on page 516. It's one of those, it's in a blue box, I think. I don't know what the proper name for that is. I think it's like case studies or something like that. So if we look at page 516, it's one of those clinical applications. Okay, so it's talking about diabetes mellitus, I think, okay, which isn't going to help you unless you know, okay, there are two types of diabetes, okay? That's why we say it here. We want you to be able to take notes. What is the difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes? Okay, which one of the things I've never agreed with is, oh man, you're becoming borderline diabetic type 2. Well, to me, I am or I'm not. I'm not borderline, okay? Oh, and that could be pre-diabetic, okay? So those are, we want you to be able to differentiate and be able to describe, okay? What are these differences? Because your clinical application, we'll talk about that on page 516, okay? Well, what's the body going through when we have inhibition of insulin? Well, first of all, you have to know, what does inhibition mean? Say that again. Because whatever it was you said, I think it's not what I was looking for, but I don't think it's wrong either. Because I could have swore I heard deny it. No? Oh, okay. So an inhibition would mean, how many, we were talking about this last hour in zoology. How many of you could eat insects? Maybe on purpose? Okay. But you may have an inhibition to that, which means you might not want to do it. It means you would stop doing it perhaps. Okay? So in this case, when insulin stops, or what are some of the effects of the inhibition of insulin? Okay? And then what are some problems that the body goes through when someone has diabetes type 1? Because you had already mentioned, if someone has diabetes type 2, can you fix that yourself?
Well, yeah.
Yes. How can a person fix diabetes type 2?
Become more active.
They can get more exercise. What else? Healthier diet. Okay? Maybe putting granola in yogurt. I'm picking on an individual. Not in here, but in the school. How about putting oatmeal in yogurt? See, that's what other students are saying. I don't think that's a bad idea.
Like rolled oats, like just like the
I would just say
like
oats.
like Quaker oats, like the
Yeah,
plain
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, would you do that? Yeah. See?
Because granola.
We're not talking about this gentleman here. We're talking about somebody else in the building. Yeah. All right. So the rest of the time, go ahead and work on this. We'll give you time tomorrow because I guarantee you this will be on your evaluation. Questions over this. But again, if you are familiar with it on your own accord, you're just going to be that further ahead. Okay. That's all I have. We will catch up to you next time.